So anybody that's watching the video, you will always see the mess in the background of my office. But it's actually different because the electronic station that used to be right here above my head in the opposite corner of the room from where I'm sitting is gone. And just moving that stuff adds this super weird echo to the room. I don't know if you probably can't hear it, but I am talking into monitors that are in a corner, and it's bouncing off that wall behind me and coming back, and it sounds really weird. I don't like it. So once I finally finish moving that stuff and clear the office out, I'm going to have to adjust, I think, because I don't like the echo. Anyway, how are you guys?
Hello.
Hello. I'm good.
What's new?
What's new? Did you guys watch my stories last night? I'm putting together the giant bandsaw. I don't know if you got a chance to see the stories. Yes. It's crazy. I got so into it last night. I've been really avoiding it. Like this whole, obviously, I didn't do the restoration. Keith Rucker did, and he finally shipped it up. It's been 3 years in the making, just about 3 years, and it's sitting there and intimidating the hell out of me. And this week I need a video because I need to advertise a little thing in the video. And I was like, what am I going to do this week? I wasn't really planning on. I'm still focusing on this bar cart that I'm making for Johnny Walker. So that's coming to a close. But that's really kind of taken up my creative YouTube time. And so I needed a simple video. So I was like, let me assemble the bandsaw. I checked in with Keith because he originally wanted to come and do it with me. He says the earliest he can come would be July. So he said, go for it. I'll just give you some guidance behind the scenes. And I started playing around with it, and it is massive. It's so I mean, pictures don't do it justice. You really got to be next to it. It almost seems like a joke. It's like, why would they have made this so big? They already had the ones that were like big.
Cartoon bandsaw.
Yeah, it's massive. And I'm afraid once I put all the parts on it, my forklift might not be able to pick it up. I'm sitting here making this cradle for it because it came in 2 pallets. I mean, obviously the frame itself, the C-frame, is about 2,000 and change. And the wheels, and then the table, the cast iron table probably weighs as much as a Volkswagen Bug. It's crazy.
Dang.
So I haven't put the table on yet. That's the last piece. But I got the 2 wheels on last night. I built a cribbing for it. It's meant to, the bottom wheel is so big it's meant to go through the floor. So it's a 48-inch throat bandsaw. 2 wheels. Sometimes you see like a 60 or a 48-inch bandsaw. It's usually on 3 or 4 wheels. This is just 2 big 48-inch wheels. And the wheel itself, the bottom wheel should go through the floor of the factory wherever it's going to live forever. But I don't have a factory that has a floor that I could dig a hole in, so it's going to sit on top of this cribbing for the meantime. And the cribbing has to be 14 inches tall, so the wheel doesn't touch the ground, and I still have room for the forklift to get underneath it. So I got into it last night. I kept getting to a point and being like, okay, that's enough tonight. And then I was like, you know what? I'm looking.
Just one more thing.
Well, you know what's funny? Because I work out every other night on the Peloton now, so I don't kill myself. And the night that I have the Peloton off, it's like I just keep jamming until like 2 in the morning with no slowdown. Usually if on a night when I do the Peloton, I try and do it before midnight. And then when I'm done, it's like, that's it, I'm done for the day.
Is there a plan for it when it's done? Is it going to increase any kind of capabilities, or is this just like, this is a really freaking cool tool to have in the shop?
It's just a really cool tool. Like the blade that Keith has given me is a small blade. It's like a 1/2 inch, like 4 tooth per inch, which is a blade that I can have on any of the other saws. But on this one, I'm going to buy a big, giant, like maybe 1.5 inches, 1.5 inch, like a big. I want to get like a big like sawmill blade for it, so that I could process logs and stuff for fun. It's not necessarily a sawmill because it doesn't have all the tracks and all that other stuff. It's just a big bend so you stand at, and I'm going to try and do some fun sculpting. Definitely do some YouTube shorts or Instagram shorts on it, making letters and stuff.
What was that used for? Like something made that big without any sort of a sled to be able to push things into it. You had to manhandle the material. So what did they use it for?
It was in a. He did some research. It was in a factory that manufactured train cars, and it was just for processing wood in the train car factory. I don't know if it was meant for just making slight curves and whatever. I don't know. It seems like all these different tools had their like golden age, like the table saws and like the like the radial arm saws. These tools had their moment. That was like, oh, okay, this is going to be the... And the bandsaws seemed to be a big deal. I think it went from the sawmill, which is like the turning saw. Bandsaws has been around for a really long time, like as long as everything else. But they seem to like pop at the turn of the century when you see a lot of different cool bandsaw designs. And this just might have been like you know what? Let's just make a giant one. Yeah. So I haven't seen anything bigger than this. That's not a sawmill bandsaw. There's one bandsaw that's like on the side of the road somewhere in the world, and people always send me pictures of it. But that looks like it was part of a sawmill. It's still set up. It's got like 10 foot wheels on it, and it has a blade that's about 4 inches deep, and it looks like it's just straight up for processing tree logs, and then all the apparatus that would have pushed that stuff through it. But the bandsaw is standing upright. It's this one that I'm talking about. You've all seen it. It's like a roadside attraction somewhere. It was like some industrial town that the town grew up around it, and it's just still sitting there. And I think it still has the blade on it. So I'm excited about that. I can't wait to like make a little tiny letter on it. I'm going to set it all up. I'm going to make it definitely going to do a series of Instagram shorts on that when I get it going.
It would seem like it would be harder to track that small half-inch blade on such a big bandsaw. I'm
going to find out soon enough. Yeah, okay. There's lots of adjustments on it. And we'll see. We'll see. The wheel's like 3 inches thick front to back.
So I am curious.
So you don't really
Bob.
have to track it at all. It's just going to stay on there.
Yeah. So Bob also has a massive tool.
Oh yeah,
the 3D printer. So speaking about massive tools, have you used the 3D printer yet?
I did the same thing where I printed something that's this big. It's about an inch and a half long. There's a common 3D printing kind of test that's called a benchy, and it's a little boat. And it's the thing that everybody prints first on their printers to make sure that it's just a uniform thing that everybody can compare. Yeah. I've actually never printed one before, and it was on the SD card that came with the printer. And so I was like, oh yeah, it's set up. Let's see how badly it fails. And I hit print, and just walked away. And it actually printed it just fine. But it was really funny to walk back in because I didn't look at how big it was. And so I was expecting, they'll probably take advantage of this big bed, and it's the test, like it'll show you how make a giant boat. And it was like an inch and a half long.
That's adorable.
Yeah. But I haven't done anything else with it yet.
Have you seen the meme going around of somebody pulling a big giant cat print off of that same? Is that same printer? Have you seen that?
I haven't seen that.
Oh, I meant to send it to you. It was just a girl who pulls off a cat as big as like a 100-pound dog. She pulls it off that printer. It's like a voluminous thing, like this, the size of I'm thinking a bear. It's like the size of like a lab. She pulls it off and walks to the camera with it. And I was like, oh, that looks like Bob's printer.
Crazy. Yeah, it probably is. They sent out a bunch of them. It's a really interesting, it's a bunch of interesting choices. the printer itself, and like I said, I've only used it that one print, and I've just been too busy on the room to really mess with it too much. But looking at it, the bed on the printer is 4 individual beds that are, I don't remember how big they are. They're big. Each one is big, like this big. And so there's 4 of them next to each other. And normally when you have a big bed, it's rigid mounted to the structure underneath because you need to be able to adjust across these big long spans. You need to be able to get it set, and then the software will go around and probe a whole bunch of times and figure out the difference in height between all the different places. And then it builds basically a 3D map of like a model of the bed. And then it knows when I go to print something, I have to follow the contours that are built into this flat surface. It's not actually flat, right? And so usually you rigid mount that big thing so that it stays where you put it. And on smaller printers, they'll have a bed that is spring mounted. So it's sitting on these it's like a screw that pushes the surface down with a spring underneath it. And so if you push on the bed, you're compressing the spring, which shouldn't actually happen, but it happens, right? Well, this thing is spring mounted. And this bed is like 3.5 feet across in both directions. There's 4 of them, and they're all spring mounted, which means they don't meet up with each other. And if you push on them, they compress.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why in the world would you do that? And I know a couple other people who I've talked to that have the same thing, and they've immediately run into problems with that. And
how do you get your raft? How do you get your raft to be?
What do you mean?
Is it? Are you saying the surfaces are like disjointed? Is that what you're saying?
They like the different beds. Maybe within a bed it is flat. I don't know. I haven't tested it yet.
But I'm saying, can you put a raft across all 4 quadrants?
You could, but the beds to each other are not in line.
Right.
And so you have these 4 quadrants, and 1 is higher than 2, 2 is higher than 3, and 3 is higher than 4,
weird.
but slopes. So one side of it is lower than 1, and it's just a really weird choice. Because
when it does
feels
its
like
mapping,
it's gonna, it does the mapping around all 4.
So, like my bamboo A1, it does the mapping thing. It doesn't. When it does that, it doesn't actually change the bed level, right? It just changes the way it prints. Correct?
Yes. As
I
understand it, yes.
Does this one change the bed levels so they all line up? No. Oh, weird.
No. Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. If you're moving, if you're on a vector, right? You have 2 endpoints from the edges of a plate, and you know that it's a slope. That way the printer can print on a slope to match what the ground is. That totally makes sense. It's genius, actually. But if you have 2 surfaces that are not aligned, that means there's a step in the middle of that vector, which is really weird. Like, what if you try to print something flat across it? How does that even... I don't know. I have questions that I haven't gotten the answer yet.
More stuff to figure out.
Yeah, and so like Joel I was talking to him about his, and he put his together on a live stream and then tried to print something with it, and the print head immediately crashed into the bed and just like drug across it and ruined a bunch of stuff. I don't even know what all it ruined. And so he had to get a whole new, hot end and all that stuff to replace it, and then he had a big failure the second time, and it like melted a bunch of stuff together, and so he's basically, I think, going to take the guts of this printer, take off the beds, replace them with rigid mounted beds, replace the hot end with like a whole new extruder and all this, so he's gonna take the framework and then build his own kind of thing out of it, which is interesting. So I don't know, we'll see how it goes, but it is a really big, strange set of decisions. So I don't know, we'll see. But I actually printed some stuff for the first time yesterday. I don't even remember the last thing I 3D printed, because I've been in transition, with the shop, and I've been building the room, and I've been moving things into the room and all this stuff. And so it's just been a while since I've gotten to print anything. And it felt really good to have an idea for a gear-driven little mechanism, just sit down and model it and send it to the printer. And then I went in an hour later, and I had all these gears and these mounts and all this stuff done, and I had to redo them a few times because I, thought about better ways to do it. But just like in an afternoon, I made a little moving thing that's driven by a stepper motor and spins it. It's just cool. I don't know.
It's satisfying.
Yeah, it is.
Jimmy just sent a photo of the bandsaw. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Jimmy just sent a photo of the bandsaw, and this thing is massive. Jimmy's standing next to it, and his head is where the table would be when you would cut something on there.
Yeah, I got to make a platform to work on. That's what's
Wow.
And you'll need steps to get up to the platform.
Yeah, because it's going to be about 15 inches high, yeah.
It looks cool. There's pinstriping on there. Is that all redone?
Yeah, that's when Keith got that. There was a mess. I got to find the original picture of them. Yeah, it's
That's
crazy.
Awesome.
It looks
if this stops working, you can just turn it on its side and use it for half of a car. Like
no kidding.
You could build
a very inefficient car.
Yeah, like the heaviest car ever with tiny little wheels. That is pretty wild. All right,
That's right.
The wheels, are they entirely steel, I assume?
No, they're a combination of wood and steel spokes. The wooden rim and steel spokes.
Okay.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's
crazy.
Something else. So this is where it's going to stay? Like you've already got it on these blocks and stuff?
Well, I do plan on being able to pick it up and move it around a little bit, but it's going to be difficult.
Yeah. But once you get that table on, you think it'll be hard to do that.
Yeah, it's gonna. Saying. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Oh, here's a picture of the. I could send this to the chat, but there's a picture from the catalog.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Still got that new bandsaw smell.
You should have painted yours black and white, so it looks like a black and white picture.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, that's really cool.
Somewhere in here, I'll find the actual. Oh yeah, here it is, broken up, undone.
Sorry for all the audio podcast listeners out there who can't see this amazing thing, but it's pretty impressive.
Well, David, what have you been doing?
This week we filmed. I needed something quick because we're taking off for the weekend. So I made coasters, and I made them overly complicated, just because I wanted it to be fun. I wanted it to be a multi-day process. So quick, but still a couple days of making. So I'm not going to get into the details because I'll save it for the video. But I think the theme of the video is, I've said this a few times, but woodworkers love overkill, and this is definitely an overkill project. And a couple things went wrong. It's weird. You wouldn't think things can go wrong on a simple little coaster project, but things didn't go as planned, and I don't know, just a fun, challenging little project.
Does the video lean into like overkill on purpose?
Yes.
Do you talk about that? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So even before starting the project, the whole theme of the video was woodworkers love overkill and why we like to complicate things. So
interesting.
I'm playing around with making the why instead of the how when it comes to the videos. Why I'm making something instead of how to make something. So just toying around with some formats.
You know, I have tried to do that a few times, and I've played with talking about thought process and stuff, and it's really interesting. And you'll see this too. That, like a lot of other things we talked about, when you make a change, people came in to watch you for a certain thing, and then when you change something about that, it's not going to sit well with some of those people, not all of those people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found that a lot of people were really responsive to, like, oh, I love hearing about what you think about or how you know, your process to get to this thing. And there's a lot of positive response to that. Oh, I want to see more of this. And then there's this really smaller but way more vocal response that is like, shut up, stop talking. I had one this morning that literally, while we were preparing for this, said, this channel should be called I Like to Talk or something to that effect.
Oh my goodness.
And like, you know, from one perspective I can put my defenses up and you know, get mad about that or whatever, but at the same time, like, they came in probably with a video where I was just like, hey, I'm gonna make a thing, and then I made a thing, and that's fine. And so my response is always like, you know, you don't have to watch. There are lots of other channels that do lots of things, and there's no hard feelings if you go somewhere else. You know, there are nice and not nice ways to say that, and so I'm working on trying to use the nice ways to say that. But really, there's plenty of content. Like, if you decide to go down that route, you're going to have those people guaranteed that are just not going to be into it.
It's funny you bring that up, because in the last video, I purposely wanted to make a different style of video, and I wanted it to be about the why. And, you know, as a woodworker, I love to customize everything around me. So that was kind of like the theme of the video. And the beginning of the video, like, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna stop thinking about algorithms and analytics, and I just want to make what I want to make. And so, like, purposely, the video starts off with a few seconds of silence and like boards moving around, and it starts off very slow. And I had this idea in my head of how I wanted the video to look and feel, and I believe I nailed it, or got really close in the first minute, and almost like a Van Neistat type style of video. But then as we got into the project, I just went right into my normal language, right into the normal way we film things, and it was really hard And so to me, I felt like the video was a little disjointed because it starts off one way and then it kind of morphs into classic Picciuto. And I was telling Kelly, I was like, it just doesn't feel like the way I want it. And she's like, you're trying something different. You know, you know, these things take steps. You just can't do it all at one time. And so mentally I'm like preparing, like, well, there's going to be people that hate this. Of course there's going to be people that hate this. And most people don't even comment on it. They just comment on the thing that I'm making. And then a few people are like, ooh, I like the way you started off this video. I like the calm factor about this video. So I prepared myself for the negative people, but it didn't really happen. I overthink things.
Oh yeah, me too. I mean, that should be my middle name. And it's funny though, because like you talk about the expecting a response and getting a different one, or you know, whatever. And I, on so many occasions, have had two comments literally next to each other in the stack of comments. I hate your music. It is terrible. Turn it off. And the next one is, oh, the music in this one is great.
Yeah.
And that evidence just shows me that, it reminds me that we're putting a piece of content out to this ridiculously diverse group of people that are coming at it from their own perfectly fine viewpoint, their own history, their own expectation, their own everything. And it's not going to hit with, I think, a pretty wide percentage of people, like a big percentage of people. But we got to remember that you know, we're not talking to, like, we let people into a stadium with a ticket that wanted to be there. We're basically just going to a corner and yelling what we do, and then people that pass by
busking
might be into it, they might not. Yeah, we're busking. I mean, basically, you know. I found that comment, by the way. I just want to read this out loud because your biggest problem, all caps, your biggest problem is that you talk way too much and do very little work. We don't care about your deep thoughts or profound vision. We want you to see the work, get with it.
That is your biggest problem.
That is my biggest problem. Of all the things that I do wrong, that's it. So the irony there, and just to prove this point, to completely drive it into the ground, before I made this video about this is like a 30-minute video about me rearranging the shop. Longest video we've done in maybe ever, I don't know. And before I did that, I put out a poll on the community page in YouTube. I put out polls in Instagram, and I said, hey, I'm thinking about making a video about rearranging my shop that is going to be mostly about my thought process for how I'm organizing things, how my plan is coming together. Does that sound interesting to you? So, like, I asked in both places, and the overwhelming response was, oh, I need that too. That would be great to hear. Or, I love it when so-and-so does organization videos. Or, you know, it was like, yes, we love to hear your thoughts on things. You think about things in a different way than I do. And
except for
great
Bill.
Stuff. Except for old Tom Owens. Yeah. No, I mean, you know, it's not going to hit with everybody. I totally get that. And a lot of people want to just see things moving forward. But, you know, that's okay. Like, I'm fine if this guy or anybody else is just done with what I do, or if they realize that this video is different on purpose than the rest of them, and maybe they'll find something valuable in another one, or maybe not. But I think we have this endless potential audience. And so as they move away, someone else has potential to come in and find something that's really beneficial. I know I've talked about the subscriber turnover, you know, in videos, and how when I put anything up, at this point it's anything, the first 24 hours is almost always a negative subscriber count. I lose people immediately. And that really bothered me for a little while, but then the longer I watched that, I went back, like on this 30-minute long video, in the first day in 14 hours, I was back to 0, the subscriber count from this video. So I lost I don't know, 10 or something, not many, but it went down in the first day and then came back to 0 at a day and 14 hours. Now we are 5 days in, and I'm a net positive 111 people. Mm-hmm. And so what that tells me is that there's at least now 111 people, actually there's more than that, but who saw that long form video with me talking and thinking, evidence of who I am today and what I'm trying to do today. And those 120 some odd people were into it enough to hit a button that didn't cost them anything.
I'm picturing your computer playing on the sidewalk and 111 people just standing around, like holding up everybody walking through, as if you're busking on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
With the computer.
So I guess my point is that like that change is a good thing, and even though it causes some shedding, I think it also just even a small amount of positive. Net positive reaction to those changes, like, it's still going in the right direction.
So I wonder if people, if there's anybody else out there like me. I've been unsubscribing to a lot of channels lately because there's all these. Jimmy, you're okay. Jimmy, you're still good. Because we have all these forms of media. I mean, we subscribe to like 4 different streaming services, maybe more. And your phone and YouTube. And so I really have been trying to get my YouTube to be very much of what I want to watch. So I'm like, I don't watch this channel anymore. I'm going to go and unsubscribe. I'm going to go watch. And I've been just trying to get my feed to be more tailored to what I want to see. And there's got to be other people like that.
All you got to do is look at like how to fix a dishwasher, and then for the rest of the week you'll just get dishwasher videos. So all you got to do is look at what you want.
So the trick is to remove that video from your history, because your recommendations come from your histories and your subscriptions and like videos. So,
Interesting.
It is funny how hardcore YouTube. Like I was looking at a MIDI controller yesterday, and my recommendation page is full of MIDI controllers. Like, nope, I got what I wanted. I don't need to see any more of that. So I would just hit not interested.
Yeah, there occasionally are things, and Google in general is the same way. And there are occasionally things where I'm like, I've never heard that term before. I should look that up and see what it is, or like, what exactly does this tool look like? And I almost always do it in an incognito window. Yeah. Because, like, I looked up an ultrasonic welder the other day. Have you ever heard of an ultrasonic welder?
Yeah, amazing.
I had no idea what that was, and so I was like, I want to look this up. Wait a minute. I don't know what this is, so I have no idea what else it's going to recommend to me. So I'm like, incognito window, let's just check to see what an ultrasonic welder is. Because I knew that it would then be trying to sell them to me on like Instagram or something if I tried. But, man, they are really expensive. They look really cool. I mean, it looks like a cool thing to have, but yeah, not cheap. Let's see. So for me this last week, I've still been working on this kind of clean room, doing all of the lights and stuff that I'm wanting to do in there. I don't know if I showed you guys a picture of it recently, but it's almost done. It's taking way longer than I thought it would, and I'm honestly kind of ready just to be done with it and move on to something else. It's like at that point. And because I rearranged the woodworking side of things, and I built this room, and now I've put a bunch of stuff in this room, and I've moved the electronics into this room. There's the other side of the shop, there's this like avalanche of things that don't have a home yet, and stuff that needs to be thrown away, and and so it's all been pushed to one side. So when I look one direction, I'm like, that looks awesome. And I turn around, I'm like, what in the world just happened? It is so much stuff. And so into this week, next week, my plan is to take a couple of days and just, throw things away, donate things, just get rid of things. So I had an interesting conversation with Forby yesterday. You were talking about wanting to do a small project with the coasters. And because I've been working on, I did the basement, which was several videos within the same space and a bunch of just continued work on the same space. And then I moved to the shop and I'm doing the same thing, continued work on the same space. And, wrapping up this room, I was like, I feel like it's all taking a really long time, even though it's not really not. I'm setting my own schedule. but I feel like I should do something quick. I feel like I should just do a short project just to, add a couple of weeks back to the buffer, and to, I had that feeling again that I haven't had in a while, because when we scaled down, I slowed down the schedule. It really gave me more time to do things at a better pace, and like to have time to think about things. And so I haven't been in a rush to do short projects to kind of fill a content gap. And this last couple of days, I've felt that for the first time in a long time, and I don't like it at all. I hate that feeling of like I feel like I should come up with something. That's just not a good thing. And so I was talking to him about it, and I don't know why I had that feeling. We don't get a lot of sponsors these days, and so I don't have a sponsor requirement to fill. Obviously I have to work to make money and stuff, but I don't necessarily have to do something quick just to have a video done. And he gently reminded me that, like, it's okay. You don't have to come up with something fast that you don't actually want to do to fill a spot. Like, just put the time towards something that you do want to do that's going to take a little bit longer, and it's okay if we have a few weeks where there's no video or there's whatever. And so it was nice to have, he's good about being an outside voice that can kind of like, hey, don't forget what you said, and don't forget what your goals are, and stuff like that. But I had to be reminded, because I was definitely feeling that pressure of, like, the hamster wheel. Even though it was a slower hamster wheel than it used to be, it still is a hamster wheel if you let it be. So,
But then
so I'm trying this week to take a few days. My point in all that was, rather than finishing this one thing and then jumping into the next thing that I don't really even know what it is and I don't have a need, I'm just going to take a couple of days and clean and, like, make space for myself to think, So, anyway.
I get very anxious when I'm not working on something. Like, I took a couple weeks off earlier this month, and I was like, this is a good time to do some of the shop stuff that I wanted to do, but I get, man, if I don't have something ready to go, I just feel weird. I feel I almost like I enjoy the pressure. So
Definitely get more done when there's pressure.
Yeah.
I'm definitely more productive when I feel the pressure, but I absolutely need tinker time. That's what I call, like, Bob, that you were talking about just now. Mm-hmm. Cleaning up, tinkering, making associations in the shop, like, seeing material near some other material and going, oh, wouldn't it be cool if, that free thinking is really important. And that's what comes in between the mad rushes. So that free thinking is really, really something you need to make space for. And that's what you're going to do, Bob. And I do that a lot. I do that a lot late at night. That's why I stay up late at night, because there's no distractions. A lot of that free thinking, tinkering comes in around that time. So you definitely need it.
I was talking to my daughter yesterday about a similar thing, because she's like me in that she just wants to be productive all the time, and she just does a bunch of stuff. And I was trying to share with her how good it's been for me over the last 6 months or so to intentionally, like, slow down, take breaks, work hard, but then have time that is intentionally not working. Let your mind wander, all that stuff that we talked about. And so yesterday I went for a bike ride. I thought of you, Jimmy, because I went for a bike ride for the first time in, years. And there's some trails near here, so I took my mountain bike out and had a lot of fun. But while I was doing that, I realized about halfway through this ride that I hadn't been thinking about work or anything else really at all. I was just working hard to pedal. And I don't want to give it away, because I came up with a kind of, I think, a cool project idea. But I was going around this trail, and I saw something, a man-made thing that was there. And I was like, oh, that would be fun to make one of those, but, it wouldn't be very interesting. It would just be fun to do. And then I started thinking, as I passed it, my brain just kept going on it. I'm like, oh, but wait a second. I could use this. I could use a weird material to make that thing and put it in a weird place, and that would be interesting. And it was just one of those little things, like you always talk about, just you take in some input that you don't get normally. And my dogs are angry about something. And just being free to think about something, it gave me an idea that I actually got kind of excited about.
Those moments are magical. They just feel so good when you just you're not thinking about making something and an idea comes and you're like, man, this is why I'm doing this. This is what I'm here for.
I wish I could be in a constant state of that. Not constantly coming up with ideas, but in a constant state of
being open.
I don't know. Yeah, being open, taking input to let those ideas just be able to come into. I feel like I'm engaged so much that I'm not in that state of like observing and stuff as much as I would like. Be kind of cool, but
honestly,
anyway.
People see me working so hard, and they think that I'm working so hard, and I want them to think that so they don't bother me. But there are lots of moments throughout the day where I do exactly that. I mean, that's why I love the cats and the chickens and stuff. You know, at least once a day I go and I hang out with the turkeys. I don't always say Instagram once in a while, but every day now, especially now that it's warm out, I'll just sit on the grass and the turkeys come to me and I hang out with them. And I'm always sitting on the back wall with the cats and playing. And those moments are what you're talking about, Bob. It's like you need moments to let things in. And in the city, when I was in the city, and my downtime was walking the dogs. I had a couple of Yorkies at the time. I had Woody and Lucky, and I remember for 10 years I had to take care of dogs. So I'd work, and I'm like, oh, the dogs need me. So I go walk the dogs. And that was my moment of Zen. You know, that's what they would always say on the Daily Show. Now your moment of Zen. My moment of Zen was always just taking the dogs for a walk, relaxing, answering a couple of emails, but it wasn't jam, this, that, work, table saw, chop saw, glue, clamp, take a break, go walk the dogs. And you guys have dogs, so you know that moment. But like in the city, it's different where you have to actually go and get them and bring them outside. You know, when you live in the suburbs or in the country, it's a lot easier. But those moments are important. You really need to make time for those moments. So, I think of an excuse to go to Home Depot once a week, even if I don't have to go, just so I can wander the aisles and make associations and make connections and think about stuff, look at new things and be like, oh, this is cool. Wow, why did they do it this way? They should have done it that way. And then all of a sudden, oh, maybe there's a video there. I was walking through the aisles the other day, and I'm obsessing about channel locks. I have a pair right here in front of me. These channel locks. I'm trying different brands of channel locks, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I still have no idea why, but I'm like, I'm acting like Jocko, where I'm like, every time I see a new channel lock, I'm like, oh, I need to buy that. I don't know what it's going to be yet. I have a couple of vague ideas to improve this for my own personal use, not for the world, because it's the type of product that's been pondered over for the last 150 years.
Yeah.
But, you know, you need some free time to obsess and think about things that aren't pressing. You know?
Yeah, talking about going down different aisles at the stores. I've gotten into a habit, and I didn't realize it, I don't think, until you said that. But I've definitely made trips to those stores just to walk around and like look at materials that I've never had to come across or whatever. But now I've found that I will take aisles to get to things that I've never had to take.
Yeah.
For that purpose. Because if I'm going, like I had to go to get a piece of trim the other day, and I had to go buy it twice because the first one I got was the wrong size. And so when I went back, rather than going to the fastest way to get to that place where I knew I was going, I'm like, oh, I've never been down the whatever this blinds and shelves aisle is before. I'm going to go down here just to see what was there. And there's a bunch of stuff. I mean, nothing that I would immediately use. I didn't have any great ideas for, but I realize now what's involved in that particular aisle, the materials that are a part of it, the things that it could offer if I ever, you know, it's just like cataloging little bits of stuff. But just trying to find different ways to get to the same places you go. I guess that's whether it's in a store or in life, but finding different paths to get there, you're just going to run into more things. And I've definitely come across some really cool things in Home Depot and Lowe's that informed a project that just would not have happened otherwise. Yeah. There was years ago, I made giant lightsabers. Do you remember that? They were like 12 feet long lightsabers. And the whole thing happened because I went down the concrete aisle. And so I didn't need any concrete, but I happened to walk down that aisle, and I'm just like looking around at all the stuff. And I saw those big Quikrete tubes or whatever they're called. I don't know what they're called, but those big cardboard tubes that were, 12 inches, 14 inches across. And I'm like, oh man, that's a giant cylinder that you could use for something. And just kind of plug that away, and then walk down the same aisle to the back half of that same aisle, and down there was the clear corrugated roofing stuff. And I'm like, that can become a cylinder too. And so then I just put those two things together, and it was a moment of, I can make a 12-foot lightsaber, And it was all from just going down an aisle that I had never been down. So, anyway. We did kind of have a topic. Didn't we have a topic, David?
Yeah, so we get to make stuff all the time. So, more than most people. And so, as designers and makers, do you think you are progressing as much as you should? Do you get stuck in your old ways of making things? Because when this was a hobby, when I had a job, I could only do a little bit on the evenings, a little bit on the weekends, and it was a slow progression. But now that I do this all the time, I feel like, man, I should be so much further than what I am. I always feel like that, but when I go back and look at my history of what I've done, it's like, oh yeah, you have progressed, but it doesn't feel like it in the moment. And so my question was, do you feel like you've progressed enough?
Sometimes I struggle with the fact of, have I progressed enough? Does that mean financially? I mean, I'm asking rhetorically. Does that mean financially? Does that mean I've created enough work, physical work? What is enough? Do I have enough properties? I already own 3 properties in this area. Do I need to own more? Have I progressed enough? And a lot of times when I'm sitting with the chickens and the turkeys and the cats, I really think I've done enough. I really have done enough. But like a worker bee, I'm prompted by natural selection to keep going and keep doing more. And then the algorithm makes me want to improve and think of new stuff, which is, I told you guys about some behind-the-scenes stuff I'm doing. I'm not ready to talk about it. It's no big deal, but it is definitely a departure from what I'm doing. And if that turns out to be something that's interesting, I'll talk about it publicly. But in the meantime, you got to keep pressing a little bit further into the future. But you really got to look back and decide if you're happy with what you have. And if you're not, press harder. If you're content, press a little less harder. Don't put as much pressure on yourself. And I'm not putting a lot of pressure on myself these days. I have a lot to maintain, as far as the house. And now that I'm mostly alone here, I'm weed whacking, I'm cutting the hedges. I'm doing a lot more things that I didn't do. Willie did a lot of that stuff. I'm doing a lot more things that I didn't do before. And that gives me a lot of downtime to think. Plus, it also keeps me physically busy, which I really am always looking for, to keep physically busy. I like to make sure that I'm challenging my skeleton so it doesn't just turn into mush. and I'll assess the day. I'll be like, all right, I was up and down a ladder 50 times. I did this, I did that. I can skip the bike tonight. I'm not your average sedentary human being sitting in an office.
Yeah, true.
I can look around and be like, I don't check my steps, but I walk the property. Every single time I need to go down to the barn, which is about 700-800 feet away from the house, I'm like, I'll walk. Even though there's 3 Polarises sitting there, I can hop on any one of them and ride. I'm like, I'll walk. It's a nice stroll. I got a beautiful piece of property. Why not just walk it? Walk to the chickens. I got this triangulation. I walk to the chickens, let them in or out, and then walk to the barn, check the chicken food, walk to the barn, come back. So when you look back at where I started, where we started, I wrote the note. That's what I started. I wrote the note where, remember when it was like year 1 or 2, maybe year 2 or 3, when we all, for some reason, ended up buying a house at the same time, or moving our shops at the same time. And everyone's like, man, you guys must be making a lot of money. You're all moving. This podcast must pay well. It was just a pure coincidence that all 3 of us had that thing at the same time. It's like, our cycles all worked out the same way. But they always say comfort is the downfall of anybody's career. And I'm not comfortable in the way that, like, I don't feel like I ever have to do anything else again, because I'm compelled, like a worker bee, to just keep moving and keep doing stuff, we jokingly always called my dad the worker ant. My dad was like the soldier ant. He's constantly collecting leaves and bringing them back to the hole and moving them around. He couldn't stop right up until when he was gone. He was always moving, rearranging. He was just compelled to work and move stuff, and I feel the same way. I try to be more productive than my father. At the end, he was just managing his stuff that he didn't need. But I just got to keep moving. I have to keep moving. And if I'm making things and progressing, when you look back where I started, I got out of college, I was working in my mother's basement, and then I remember making the move to go to the city. Me and my brother agreed to get an apartment together. Then we got the apartment, and then the storefront downstairs became available. We took the storefront, and the storefront was too small, and we're like, let's get a bigger space. And we got an overhead garage down the block in the Lower East Side. And then from there, we got kicked in the basket because our personal little economy crashed, and we needed to go work for somebody. We had to give up that shop, which was painful because we thought we were going to buy the building. We weren't able to afford it. But you learn these life lessons. You got to take a chance. You got to. I really believe you got to take a chance to evolve. And if the evolution, if you're taking that chance and it doesn't work out, don't feel like a failure. Just go, okay. That wasn't, they think Thomas Edison said it famously. He didn't have failures. He just figured 100 ways that wasn't the right way to do it. It's not a failure. It's just those are all the different ways it's not going to work until you find the way it is going to work, whether that's a financial investment in your personal future or whether it's making a connection with a soldering iron. These are just different ways it's not going to work. But you learn from everything you do wrong. So, and if you don't, you're dead in the brain. If you don't do something and learn from it and keep doing it, there's something wrong with you. Yep. My TEDx talk is over.
I don't know. I mean, for me, I definitely don't feel like I've progressed skill-wise. I don't feel like I'm better.
Oh, come on now.
Well, no, that's not me. I'm giving my honest feeling toward my skill set.
I'm not saying you're being overly humble. I'm saying you definitely improved. You might not recognize it.
That's where I was going with. I think I probably have. I think I've gotten better at a lot of things, but I don't feel it because those changes are so slow and so spread out over so many years that it.
Right.
I don't feel like, man, I worked really hard at this thing, and now I'm professional, whatever. It's
something nobody stops to recognize. Maybe the bigger guys like Casey Neistat and these guys that all, like the upper echelon guys in the YouTube world. Each one of us manage and run our own production company, which in and of itself is a tremendous skill set that nobody stops to recognize. It's like manage, produce, direct, edit, sound design, movies every week. That's a career on its own. We do it as a means to an end to show off and develop the skills that we're doing and show off products and such. So don't forget all that we've all evolved in the last several years and how much easier it's gotten and the skills we've developed with all that. Yeah. Which in and of itself is a career standalone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like I said, there are things that I have gotten better at, but it doesn't feel like it because I have not found many things that I've really honed in on and actively tried to get better at them for the sake of being better at them. And that's not really my goal. So I'm not disappointed in that. My goal has never been to be like a master woodworker, metalworker, prop maker, whatever. I just want to be able to do it enough to be able to make the thing that's interesting in the moment. And that I think the downside of that is that a lot of people expect us or hope that as presenters we will become an authority on something. And I'm just not. Like, I don't claim to be. I don't really want to be. That's not been a goal. To be an authority on anything. And because that's not a goal, then I'm not chasing it, which means I'm not going to get there. And that's fine with me, you know what I mean? But I think the perception from the audience a lot of times is that if you are writing a book, or if you're talking on a podcast, or if you are making a video about something, then you're doing it from a place of authority, and that's just truly not the case all the time. And I think for me, talking about do you have enough as a metric? I think, I know my idea of enough is a moving goalpost. It is a thing that changes on a regular basis, and the older I get, the less that goalpost has been about stuff and performance and analytics and money, and it's far less about those things. And enough or accomplishment is, for me, has just gotten way more on the personal side of things. And personal in that it's not worth talking about here, but personal also in that what I do on YouTube doesn't affect it. It doesn't, the things I make don't have anything directly to do with how my kids interact with the world. But that's a goal for me. That's a, am I doing enough? Am I getting them to be the people that I think that they should be for their own sake? Stuff like that, you know what I mean? So the older I get and the further I get into this, the less it matters to me if I'm good at things. In regards to making stuff. I get to do it. I'm very blessed that I get to make things, and I don't have to be the best at that, and I don't even have to get better at it. I get to do it. But it enables me to be able to actually pursue the stuff that I do care about, really deeply care about, that is offline, that is behind the scenes, that is more impactful to the world long term than making silly videos about Star Wars stuff. So that's my response. I don't know if that actually answers the question.
Yeah. Don't forget the importance of your YouTube channel and the content we create. The heartfelt notes we get, and we've helped people.
Oh yeah, sure. And
don't forget
I also look at the things that we do. We're leaving a record for people who want to do it in the future.
Yeah,
like whether it's educational or just motivational, or I mean, I talk on this podcast in a way on purpose, because I want my kids to be able, when I'm long gone, for them to be able to come and listen to this show and understand what I was thinking about on May 22nd of 2024.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the context right now. They're teenagers. They don't know what I'm thinking through and how I feel and how I engage with you guys. And so like this and the videos are all an opportunity to catalog something for them, maybe not for anybody else. But then the other side of it is, we're leaving a record for people who may need to know how to make treasure chests out of logs for the rest of history. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, it's all really cool in different ways, but to the, am I doing enough? Am I progressing enough?
Yeah. I've
definitely redefined my goalpost over the years and continue to kind of hone where that is, and and it's not how many trucks I have or how many bandsaws I have. Or how many 3D printers I have, or how many Star Wars things I have. I'm not picking at you. I'm saying like,
of course,
the stuff that we want to, the physical stuff that we often feel is evidence of our production and of our effort is becoming less and less important to me as evidence. Okay, now I'll shut up. I do talk a lot. See, I told you.
That's your biggest problem.
It's my biggest problem.
Is your biggest problem.
I like to talk stuff.
That's right. What about you, David? How do you feel about that?
I mean, like I mentioned earlier, it always feels like I haven't progressed enough, and I don't necessarily need to or want to progress more as a woodworker, because I feel like anything that I can see, I can probably figure out how to reproduce. But I want to get better at the design part, the sketching part, the doing things that aren't normal part, the things that are going to really push me. And I wish I was further along in that. And so like the little Bluetooth radio video that we put out last week, I'm not necessarily...
Very cool, by the way.
Thank you. I'm not necessarily in love with the design, but it was way different than anything that I've ever done, and I think it looks way different than any other Bluetooth radio that you're going to see. And so I think that's like and then the record player stand that I made earlier this year, that was way different than anything I've done or have seen. And I think that one was a really good design. So I hope I look back at 2024 as like, yeah, I really tried to do things different. And sometimes you have to go beyond crazy in as far as designs, and then figure out what works, what doesn't, and then you can dial it back to hone in on your style. And yeah, I wish I was further, but I really think I've made a turning point this year in getting to the point of where I want to be, and that feels good.
Yeah, you're like oriented to the right direction.
Yeah. I'm looking the right way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The one thing I never want to do, though, and I have to remind myself, is I never want to say, I'm here.
Right.
This is it. You never want to, because when I look back, I remember I was with a girlfriend long time ago, and she said, I guess we were in our 20s, and I was in the toy business already. This was in 94, 95. So I was in the toy business for about 4 years at the time. And she said, you're set. You're in the. You know what you're going to do for the rest of your life. You're set. You're this toy inventor guy. That's what she says to me, because she was having struggles with what she wanted to do with her life. And when she said that to me, I remember thinking to myself, "Am I set? Am I really set?" And that was years before I had an opportunity to be on TV. Years before I had an opportunity to start my own YouTube channel. Years before I ever thought I was going to be fabricating for interior designers. I thought I was just going to be this weirdo inventor loser just making stuff in the Lower East Side in a little storefront making toy inventions. And when I look back where all the different paths that I've come, which happened so slow and imperceptible that at the time I didn't realize things were changing until I look back. You know, so when you look back in the rearview mirror and you realize all the different turns you made, slow turns, fast turns, places you've been, if you're living and breathing, evolution's going to happen no matter what. And my brother said to me years and years and years ago, when he went from being a cop to being a comedian, and he was obsessively reading about all types of different stuff, and he had read somewhere at that time that everybody makes 2, if not 3, major career changes in their life by the time they hit the finish line. And I think about that often. Even though I'm in the world of creativity, I've made some very major changes in my life. I never in a million years thought I was going to be making YouTube videos, filming myself doing everything I do on a daily basis. I remember when in 98 when my brother got on TV and everybody was looking at me going, are you going to be on TV? Are you going to follow your brother into Hollywood? I'm like, I'm not a comedian. I'm not an actor. All I do is make stuff. And I remember saying in 1998, 1999, I will only ever be on camera if it's me doing me. I will never want to be an actor. I'm never going to be going up for an audition for something. And I would say it at the time. I go, I'm only ever going to be on camera if it's me being me, and that's never going to happen because no one wants to see me being me. No, I'm not I'm an inventor. I make stuff in the basement. And I think of me saying that often and being like, basically planted that seed at the time. I never thought I was going to be on camera, me being me. And here I am. We're all on camera,
you.
Us being us.
to the point of all those experiences adding up. Like in the past, you know, I've been a graphic designer, I've been a web developer,
it all comes together.
I've been a photographer, as an audio engineer, and all of those things have added up to what I get to do now. And it all comes back to episode 1 of just get started, because that experience is going to help you down the road. And so, man, what if I didn't do all those things? You know, like, I think the photography has a direct impact on my videography, and my graphic design has a direct impact on my woodworking design. And
100%.
You know,
absolutely. I think your graphic design background has, I mean, from my perspective, probably has had the biggest impact on how I see you, your spaces, and the things that you make. They're
100%.
Like, incredibly cohesive,
Oh.
and that doesn't come
through.
from that doesn't come from somebody who just like me is like, oh, I like this thing over here and I like that thing over there, and they're not related. It's somebody who has a thoughtful way to connect those interests visually, so that there's like a line that runs through it. I mean, I can definitely see that in you.
Thank you.
And that's a strength that I don't think I have. It's just something I never really got a good handle on, that kind of design, and it's something I always would like to be able to do, but my strengths are in other places. I had a thought. No, I can't think of what it was. I don't know.
I've always appreciated you, you're like, oh, I'm not a graphic designer. So my friend, who is an amazing graphic designer, I'm going to hire him to do all that stuff for me. And now you have this very cohesive brand identity, all because of you recognize, like, this is not my strength. I'm going to have somebody else do this. And I think that's paid off well.
It definitely has paid off well. And that was purely me getting out of the way.
Right. Which is hard to do.
But yeah, it is, but I think it's, if you can get rid of the pride and admit that somebody else is better at something than you are at it, then I mean, it's good for them because they get to do the thing that they excel at. It's good for you because you reap the benefits of a little bit of humility,
It's not even, for me, it's not recognizing what I'm not good at. For me, it's like, I love saying, I did that whole thing. I shot, edited, I designed, I made I have to get past that because it does take help. It does take other people's input and ideas, and my brother coming over to help me, and Kelly helped me refine the way something looks. Like, it helps to have other people, but man, I really just enjoy saying I did that whole thing, and I have to get over that.
Yeah,
it's funny when I meet somebody. I met somebody this week did a deep dive on me, marketing person, and they go, so who handles your social media? I go, oh, I do. Oh, that's cool. Well, you do a good job. Who handles all your edits? I go, I do that. I go, to be frank, I do everything. There is nobody here that helps me. Rob helps me move machines around. If you want to know how I move my machines from shop to shop.
That was going to be my next question. How do you move all those machines around?
Wow, you do everything? I'm like, yeah. This way I don't have to talk to anybody.
I love that that's your justification for just about everything. It's so that I don't have to talk to you.
In fact, I don't even want to be talking to you through email right now.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I had a conversation. A friend made an introduction. This person has a lot of energy. I have a lot of energy. And like, you guys need to meet. And the whole time we're talking on the phone, this other person thinks that I'm hiring them because I need help with what I'm doing because that's how I was presented to them. Oh. So the whole conversation, it was like a client consultation. And at the end, I was like, I don't need any help, by the way. This was just to get to know you. Hello. Maybe we could do stuff together. Oh, okay. I'm like,
thank you for wasting my time.
And I'm like, I don't know how I was presented. It was only like a 10-minute call, but it was like a whole pitch the whole time. And I'm like, this was just a, hey, you guys should meet phone call. I don't really need anything. Oh, well, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. I go, didn't I just told you I do everything myself? I don't need help.
Yeah. I have a question. I want to save it for the after show, but I have a question for you guys about your future. It's a hypothetical.
It's unknown.
It's not something that's...
Future's unknown.
Yes. But it's hypothetical. We'll talk about it in the after show. Big thanks to everybody that over at Patreon for supporting this show. They all get the after show, so everybody over there at any level will know exactly what that question is and what their responses are. See what I did there? If you want to find out what that question and the answer is, go to patreon.com/makingit. Sign up at any level, help out the show. It makes us do the show. That's why we do it, because of that support over there, and we're very, very grateful for everybody. There's a bunch of top supporters, people that go kind of above and beyond over there that always want to call out and say thank you to Rick Ryan, Corey Ward, Albert's Woodworks, Works by Solo, Chad from Mancrafting, Chad's Custom Creations, Rich at Low End Design, Odin Leathergoods, Sean Beckner, Scat at Dot It Yourself, Scott at Dad It Yourself DIY. Sorry, Scott. Jeff at Nintendo Janky Workshop. Warren Works. Michael Menedjan. And Crabtree Creative. Man, I really miffed that one. Thank you to everybody over there for the support. Again, go to patreon.com/makingit. Get the after show. It's a separate podcast. It's after this one. And we talk about other stuff. Secret stuff, often. So, do you guys have anything cool to recommend for this week?
So, I wasn't going to have like a video recommendation, so I was going to recommend a band that I've been in love with. And then this morning, a video popped up in my subscription feed called Zoomin' in Movies. And it's this channel called Paul E.T. And it's all about movie techniques. And this particular video is like the history of the zoom and why it's not used in movies. And it's a well thought out video. It's really good. And then I might as well also talk about my music recommendation. It's this band called Yard Act, and I have been in love with this band. When I first heard them about a month ago, I was like, it's not for me. It was a little too wordy, a little too poetic. And then I came up again and I listened to it, and I have purchased everything. I purchased all their records and EPs, and I've been listening to them nonstop. And this is so good. It's like they're a fairly new band, but it's like if Soul Coughing and Cake and Beck had a baby and then put that baby in a blender.
Oh, cool.
It's so good.
Damn.
Put a baby in a blender. Can't do that.
So yeah, Yard Act and Paul E.T.
Yard
Act. Yeah, terrible name.
That's the band.
Act.
ACT.
Oh, okay. What you got, Jimmy?
I'm going to recommend, in context of what's going on right now, check out Vintage Machine Works with Keith Rucker, Vintage Machinery, and there's a 40-plus video series on him gathering the bandsaw and restoring it to the condition in which now I have it. So check out Keith Rucker's channel and go look at. He's got lots of playlists, and one of the playlists is all the videos about this bandsaw restoration.
Cool. I don't know. I don't know. So, I have a few things that have been kind of interesting. So I talked a few weeks ago about Andrew. His channel is called Andrew. I don't know what his last name is. But he makes really good videos. And they're usually about they're cinematic and they're talking about an idea or something. And he did one a couple days ago or something that's called Do It For Yourself. And it's just about doing things for the creative fulfillment of doing it, regardless of what it is going to turn into. And there's something about the way he talks to camera that's very just I can't quite put it into words. Just very chill, very real, very
authentic, vulnerable. I've been watching his videos too since you recommended them.
Yeah, man, I don't know. It's a really good one. And you can tell it's interesting. He makes this video, he makes it, and then he talks about making it in the video. So it's like he shot the video and the after and then mixed them together and overlaid them in kind of an interesting order. And it's just
I think he shoots commercials for a living. Is that? I think he talks about it in one of the videos. Yeah, so that's where his cinematic stuff comes from.
Yeah, and he's good at it. It's good looking stuff. A couple other things that just are here in my history. Joel Telling did a video about this app that I have not checked out yet, but I just watched this video, and the app is called Bento Box.
Yeah, I watched his video. Yeah.
Oh man, it's cool looking. It's like for making, it's a free app to make these trays, subdivided trays, and you just kind of go in and say, I want it to be this many columns, and each one has a different number of separators, and then hit go or make or whatever, and it makes a 3D model that you can print out of the thing. It looks so slick. So I'm anxious to try that out. That looks cool. And then there was one more that struck me here. Oh, okay. So there's this little 1-minute video that's very funny. This guy that we're working with to do some editing, and he has a video called "I Made a Mistake," and it's just really funny. You'll just have to watch it.
Send it to the chat. I want to see it.
Yeah, I will. Actually, I'm not going to link that yet because I don't want anybody to poach him because he's a really good editor. If you want to see it, you can look it up, but I'll send it to you guys. Right. Maybe we should just cut that out because I don't want anybody to...
That's funny.
Anyway. All right, cool. You guys got anything else for this week?
No, this is good. We're good.
All right. Cool. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you.
See you next time.